My name is Marc Ronell. I'm presenting my Onward 2020 essay entitled Discussion of Aviation Software Oversight Improvement. The disclaimer on the presentation in the paper is that the opinions expressed in this paper and presentation are the views of the author and do not reflect the official policy or position of any agency of the U.S. government. I'm presenting this work as an independent scholar. I work at the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration Boston Aircraft Certification Office in Burlington, Massachusetts, that's within the Metro Boston area. Our office is co-located with the Engine Certification Office in the New England Regional Center. I am a U.S. federal regulator, and I was hired to certify safety-critical software, including fly-by-wire software in a new helicopter design. When safety-critical software fails, there can obviously be tragic human consequences. The damage to families is often irreversible and long-lasting. I grew up adjacent to Haverford College, just outside of Philadelphia. Kobe Bryant played basketball at the high school for the neighborhood on the other side of that college. Our Burlington, Massachusetts office certified the helicopter model Kobe Bryant and his daughter Gigi died in on January 26, 2020. Helicopters are not crash-worthy, meaning that if the passengers survive the initial impact, the fuel tanks rupture and jet fuel burns the victims alive in an accident. The software certification and approaches I've witnessed at the FAA so far need external review from independent software academics. Academics currently have no pathway to intervene in FAA software regulation. Pathways to encourage and allow academic participation need to be created and nurtured. The U.S. Civil Service requires innovative frameworks to engage experts and foster agency external oversight, especially into software regulation. The FAA has certified turbofan aircraft engines for years without adequately reviewing the engine software. Software reviews are delegated back to the engine company, effectively deregulating the program. As U.S. federal regulators, our salaries are funded by citizens who pay their taxes. U.S. regulators tend to serve mostly corporations and wealthy citizens. Typical passengers do not benefit to have their legroom and safety adequately defended. Citizens need to demand service and regulatory protection for the taxes they contribute. Two recent fatal software accidents include the Boeing MAX 737 MCAS failures. On October 29, 2018, Lion Air Flight 610 from Indonesia crashed into the ocean, killing all 189 passengers and crew. Then again on March 10, 2019, Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302 smashed into terrain, killing all 157 people on board, including Paul Girogi's entire family.
The Boeing 737 MAX crash has killed my wife, my 3 children, my mom-in-law, my family's flesh is there in Ethiopia, mixed with the soil, the jet fuel, and pieces of the aircraft.
Powerful testimony today from Paul Girogi, a Canadian man whose 5 family members died when an Ethiopian Airlines flight crashed March 10th, shortly after takeoff. The tragedy coming just months after the Lion Air crash in Indonesia, both killing everyone on board, both involving Boeing's 737 MAX aircraft. The grieving father among the family members of the 346 people who died in the 2 crashes, speaking today at a U.S. congressional hearing about aviation safety, specifically the 737 MAX. The aircraft remains grounded around the globe amid an investigation into the disasters, which appear to be linked to software designed to keep the plane from stalling. Girogi says if Boeing had grounded the 737 MAX after the first crash, his family would still be here.
Boeing should not be allowed to act like a mere investment company, extracting wealth to supercharge shareholder returns at the expense of safety and quality.
Today, Boeing said it will dedicate half of a $100 million fund it created to address the crashes to financial relief for the families of those killed. The company explains that money will be separate from the outcome of any lawsuits.
My family was my life.
Before testifying today, Girogi sharing his heartbreak over the loss of his family. That includes his children, 6-year-old Ryan, 4-year-old Kelly, and Ruby, just 9 months old.
That was my life taken away from me.
within 6 minutes.
Like many victims' families, Droge has filed a lawsuit accusing Boeing of negligence, and he's also calling on Boeing's CEO to step down.
The fact that the U.S. government oversight of safety-critical aviation software is not working should not be surprising. The U.S. suffers from systemic civil service failure. The IRS is not collecting taxes from the wealthy. The Veterans Administration is failing to take care of America's war wounded. The justice system is biased and lethal to minorities. The EPA is failing to defend the environment. Immigration separates and kills refugee children on the border. The FAA uses the RTCA DO 178 guidance to certify software development. The guidance needs to be studied to determine whether its application to steer software development successfully creates better quality software. There needs to be empirical studies to verify the efficacy of DO 178. Regulators need to know what parts of DO 178, if any, help create safer software, what parts of the guidance work, and what parts can be skipped. How can software certification be improved based on empirical results and experimentation? Are visual programming languages safe and effective methods to develop, debug, and maintain safety-critical code? The widely used schematic capture interface is familiar to electrical engineers who develop logic design, but are there safer coding languages and paradigms? New critical software is tested on the flying public to some degree. There are flight and ground system tests, but these are generally cursory. Often, expensive avionics boxes on board aircraft either fail or have significant bugs. The Boeing 737 MAX Maneuvering Characteristics Augmentation System, or MCAS, theoretically completed DO 178 certification. It remained lethal. There are many more software systems on board just that model of aircraft, including autopilot software, flight management system software, and navigation software. Why are the other software components considered safe? If safety were really an FAA priority, our agency would operate differently. Key aspects of software development are the feedback loops in the lifecycle process that help to correct requirements, implementation, and other software concerns. Corruption and regulator intimidation rupture critical software development feedback loops. Ruining the regulatory feedback process clearly also hurts the applicant's software and business results. Whistleblower programs, safety reporting programs, and protections for regulator independence are critical both to effective public safety and also apparently to better business outcomes for the corporations. Regulator performance reviews and career advancement opportunities must not be held hostage against software oversight results and regulator independence. The FAA must protect the public from corporations and operators. Regulators must be protected from management. Decisions must be reached by a plurality of regulators, not dictated by individual managers. The public must actively protect the regulators so that the regulators can protect the public. There must be multiple lines of communication between the regulators and the public that cannot be gated by management. FAA regulators certify applicant software by ensuring that there is evidence documenting that RTCA DO 178 objectives are met. Regulators need to ensure that the applicants use a configuration management system, a bug tracker, and typically look for software coding standards. Regulators also need to check to ensure that there is evidence of a verification and testing program and that the developers meet certain software quality assurance goals. Software audits are typically conducted either on-site at the applicant facilities or as a post-implementation desk audit. The latter audit is generally conducted after the software has been put into public use. During software audits, regulators will spot check to verify that the selected requirements trace to code implementations. Then there may be a check to ensure that the code implementation corresponds to a verification test. Regulators may also trace backwards to ensure tests correspond to existing code and then from code back to requirements. Regulators just spot check, matching select requirements to corresponding code and verification tests. Regulators generally do not verify the software requirements. Regulators do not attempt to confirm that the requirements are correct, complete, or even trace back into the functional hazard assessment or system safety assessment per SAE ARP 4761 guidance. Regulators perform no significant checks on software requirements. There were signs that the FAA was failing in its software certification mission before the Boeing 737 MAX accidents, and that serious consequences for the public were likely. Both regulators and the managers who were supposed to supervise the regulators' work were not academically trained to handle software. You can't supervise what you don't know. The FAA created a 2-week training course in its Oklahoma City training facility to teach individuals without a software background to certify software. That training neither substituted for a 4-year academic computer science degree, nor did it prepare its students to certify flight-critical software and ensure public safety. There was no venue to report the training inadequacies. Management famously retaliates against any employee who does not sign off on assigned certification or airworthiness directive paperwork. When asked during an Office of Inspector General investigation about retaliation, examples, lost job opportunities, lower performance appraisals, for attempting to hold Boeing accountable, 60% of the Seattle Transport Airplane Directorate employees were fearful of retaliation. Almost half indicated that they had experienced it, and 47% indicated they know of others who had experienced retaliation. Whistleblower programs in the EEOC do not work and actually further victimize the complainants. As dangerous as ill-conceived software that is running the ship can be, it is jaw-dropping just how few software regulations exist. The Code of Federal Regulations is subdivided into sections that regulate transport category aircraft such as Boeing, Airbus, and Bombardier. Another section lists the regulations for general aviation or small aircraft like Cessna, Piper, and Beechcraft. There are 2 regulatory parts for small and large rotorcraft. These parts contain hundreds of regulations for structures, airframe, electrical and systems, propulsion, and flight control, just not software. There is an engine part of the Code of Federal Regulations that contains 1 software regulation, and there is 1 more software-specific regulation in the section that regulates propellers. That is it. Software is not well regulated. FAA regulators and managers responsible for oversight must be held directly and individually liable and face malpractice suits from their victims' families. Management must not be above U.S. law. Aviation software certification needs intervention and help from computer science academics and scholars. Please assist by initiating the following 4 actions. 1. Spread the word about the need for academic oversight of safety-critical software, especially in transportation and aviation. 2. Ask elected representatives to enable you as scholars and academics to get involved in safety-critical software certification and regulation. 3. Request academic oversight of the FAA's work and ensure consequences. 4. Consider the issues of safety-critical software regulation and certification in your research agenda. Thank you for your consideration and assistance.